People don't know history. It's a big problem. A large part of my next book is about historical things that people don't know. 300 to 400 years ago, around 300 years ago, the great minds of Europe came together. Now, these were great minds, and they were sponsored by financial institutions and wealthy people of the time. Everybody from the Rothschilds to the Medici families. And what they did was they founded a center in Germany for thought and education. And there was a lot of contemplation, philosophical contemplation about how to make the world a better place, which was really how do we keep control and make sure that things that we don't like happening won't happen. How do we make sure there's no revolution, blah, blah, blah. And one of the problems that the philosophers, the German and Austrian thinking philosophers of that time had was with Christianity. As
what?
Christianity, the Christian religion.
Uh-huh.
The Christian religion. Because Christianity basically gave people the idea that God created us all equal and we are free. Nobody is better than anybody else. Nobody is higher than the king. Even the king is under God. And this was a problem in two ways. One logical and one very unusual. One was that if people think they are free, it's very difficult to control them. There's another side to that as well, but we'll get into that another day. And the other thing was that people went to church once a week. And in church, they got their download of information into their brains about morality in life. And the powers that be at the time were like, it's not enough. We've got to, we need a system where we have more control over the people, because this once a week is just not enough. Going to church on a Sunday is and there were people who, for years the Bible was illegal. And anybody who had the Bible was burned and killed. Right? If you didn't have special permission to have the book from the king, you were burned. In fact, the person who translated the Bible into English so that people in Western Europe could actually have access to the material of the Bible, he was burned alive. Yeah. He was chased around Europe for like 20 years, and eventually he was caught and he was burned alive. But by that time it was too late, because they'd made copies of the Bible and distributed it to everybody that they could. At that time, printing was difficult, but they managed to get it done because it needed to be done. It was an underground movement that took about 1,500 years to get the writings of the Bible to people of the Western Europe. People think it happened like this, or that it was always there. It wasn't. Now, church only gave the elite people, the rulers, the religious organizations, a little bit of control over society. It was not enough. So the philosophers came up with an idea that church needed to be replaced with something else. And what they replaced church with was work. The 5-day working week. Essentially. Actually, it was more. You used to work every day, to be honest. But, let's just simplify it for modern standards, the 5-day working week. But you used to work every day, yeah? And because if you were working every day, this meant you were controlled for a large part of your day, every day. And so a system was set up to create methods of employment which were practical and useful in many ways and did offer some freedoms to people. But the end game, we're talking, remember that banks, when they loan money to countries, get the money back over between 50 to 250 years, right? So banks in countries have these contractual policies that are longer than people's lifetimes. They're much longer than people's lifetimes. And so what this was a plan put into place about 250 years ago that work would replace religion. And as a result, people would be directly controlled by their employment. In fact, the word employment comes from ploy, which is basically a dark plan to fill people's time. Now, not unnecessary and offering some freedoms, but history is full of stories where the donkey, the animal with the long ears, follows the carrot that is on the stick, right? If you want your donkey to walk forward, you get a long stick with a carrot and you put it in front of the donkey, and the donkey follows the carrot down the road. We've all seen examples of that, right? Now, this little carrot was, if you work, you can have freedom. But that was only a carrot. And now that carrot has been taken away from the world. And now it's working to survive, basically. And the result is the removal of freedoms. And we're in that system now, where Slovakia is the first country to lose completely to this concept and this idea. And there will be more tests, and there will be more positive cases, and there will be more lockdowns, and it will continue for 3 to 5 years. And that's that. And the companies are unfortunately working in concert together with governments because everybody wants the money. Because if you don't have money, you die because you can't buy food and you can't pay for your energy bills and all the other basic things that are necessary. They're necessary in life, and everything was sold to people. It was a marketing plan. It was a 250-year marketing plan to sell to people that you can be free if you just do this, and then like that, shoop, everything disappears, and it's like, well, yeah, you can work, but it's not to be free anymore. It's just to survive. And subtext, it is entitled in magazines now as the Great Reset. How all the freedom of the West was lost in the space of 6 months by people who kept their fingers crossed and hoped that everything would be okay. And it's now survival. We've crossed that line from working to be free to working to survive now in a lot of cases. Also, a lot of people are making a lot of money right now in certain industries, in certain areas, because there's no morality, because people don't go to church anymore. They don't understand what morals are. They're just like, oh, I get money if I do this. Fantastic. Okay. Do you know how much it costs to pay for somebody to be killed? Obviously, it varies from country to country. Obviously, it's different if you're in New York or Trebišov, right? Right. But in the West, you can get somebody killed for £10,000, right? Get somebody killed for £10,000. Hospitals make more than that on the admission of COVID patients. It is actually cheaper to hire hit people to kill people than it is to do what the medical profession is doing in terms of providing so-called therapy and medicines for people with COVID. And the point of that is that at some point in time, there's very little difference when you look at how things are done and how things are organized, and the fact that people have to wear masks, which make them sick.
Mm.
There is zero study done ever in history that shows that mask will help you. It will just make you sick. And people are stupid, myself included, about some things, right? Let's see. The origin of coffee or something. I don't know anything about that. Okay. Or what kind of paint is the best paint to use on my wall? I don't know anything about that. Right. I can study and find it, but I don't know anything about that. When I worked in teaching in schools, there were a lot of bad teachers. Now, there were some good teachers, and I would say there was like, I would say about 10% were great teachers. I would say about 30% were average teachers, and I would say about 60% were bad teachers, in my experience. And that's different from school to school, and it can change and vary all the time for thousands of different reasons, and personality matters as well. But the same is true for most professions. The same is true for most professions. You get good and bad car mechanics, right? You get good and bad decorators. You get good and bad doctors, right? You get good and bad doctors. This is what we're living in. We're living in a little bit of the illusion of professionalism, where the people that I worked with in schools, some of them were 40 plus years old and they were not very good at their jobs. And that's after 20 years being in school, and then 5 to 10 years studying, and then 5 to 10 years practice. They were still terrible. Right. And there are some doctors that are like that as well. And they're going to take whatever is thrown at them and do whatever they're told. Just because. Some people are like that. The churches are empty. The pubs are full. Well, not anymore, because you can't go out. You can't have fun. You can't go to a concert. And you can't meet up with people. And you can't go to a club. And you can't go to a party. And you can't go to a dance. And sorry, Christmas is also cancelled. I'm sorry. There you go. You can't meet your friends. You can't have people over. You can't do your business, which is the very core of the mechanics of society. It's how people interact. A lot of the time, if there wasn't work, people wouldn't communicate with each other, because you've got to communicate to sell and you've got to communicate to solve, which is great, because human interaction is what makes life interesting. And we can't do that completely through the digital sphere. Do you think there's ever going to be a big Metallica concert again? Really? It's not going to happen. It's over. It's finished. 21 days. Psychologists know that it creates 21 days to create a permanent habit. You never go back. You never go back. If you can get somebody using drugs for 21 days, they will never go back to being clean. I say never, it's like 99%. You'll find one or two here and there that survive. Because human beings we're creative and adaptable. So, George Bernard Shaw quote. George Bernard Shaw was a eugenicist. This means that he believed that there were super people and just normal people. And of course, he believed that he was super, right? Was it George Bernard Shaw? He said, those that survive will be those that are most adaptable to change. Which is part of that is intelligence. Part of that is when it's raining, wear a coat. You know, you adapt to the environment. You have to. But everyone is tired. Here's the last point. Everyone is tired now. Everyone is like, please, just give me anything. I just want to go back to normal. Please, I'll do anything. Just whatever you say. I just want to return to normal, please. I just stick this shit up your nose and we'll give you stick this needle in your arm and you'll go back to normal. Oh, okay, please. But it never happens. Never goes back. When you get a little bit, just off, on, until people go completely crazy. Because they wake up and they don't know if it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, or Saturday, or Sunday, because every day is the fucking same when you're stuck at home. This is supposed to motivate people to actually challenge everything. In the same way that it took 1,500 years for the Bible to get into the hands of average people in the west of Europe. It's 1,500 years. It's quite a long fight to bring morality into parts of the West. And now people have replaced their religious books with romantic stories. They've replaced their visions with Hollywood films. They've lost their way a little bit. If you look around everywhere, lost. It can be found again, but it's madness everywhere. People driving cars wearing masks. What the fuck is that? I mean, I understand if your boss for your company makes it a rule, okay, the whole company has to do that. Oh, okay. But it's zero science there and completely silly. There's no logic there at all in it, right? I saw a statistic this week. I believe the statistic to be true that the average age of death from COVID-19 in Britain is 82. Age 82. Do you know what the average age of a person's death is in Britain? 81. It's quite high. It depends across which group they sampled that, I suppose. But yeah, it's. I understand it's hard hitting on the old people, but it's really crazy. Yeah, so Britain will have another lockdown. I don't follow the news. You know what I am? I just look out the window and I see what I see. Right? I don't because it's most of it is rubbish. It's not true. It's propaganda. It's fear mongering. It doesn't give me anything good. You know, there's nothing. It's not, no one's, the newspaper's not going to save me. It's just going to give me more to worry about. And I look out the window, right? If it looks like a nice day, I go outside and I enjoy it. I understand there's compromises that people need to make. We all need to make. But at the same time, we've got to follow what is. We've got to be sensible about our choices as well. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I think. It only matters what is real. Because I can think this is great, and I can think this is terrible. It doesn't really matter. What matters is what's actually real and true. What's real and true is there's a warship sitting right out there. Okay.
Really?
Yep. I'll tell you something else. Nobody noticed. Nobody noticed. We got warships going up and down the coast and fighter planes flying around overhead, and nobody noticed. Nobody noticed. I wonder why. I've got my theory about this. I don't have enough information to know for a fact, but I can speculate that it's the American election. I can speculate that the American election is causing a lot of people to make a lot of very difficult decisions, and it's causing political reorganizations in many countries across the world right now. And although it's not in the news, a lot of the countries in the world are on super high alert right now. So it's just the way that it goes. Just the way, observe and look around. There were seven fighter planes flying around here 2 days ago. 7 at the same time. It was insane. And people are like, "Oh, look, planes!" I'm like, "Oh, all right." You want there to be some level of defense, but the whole question about who controls what is very complex. I'll tell you what runs through my mind. I look at the ships are old ships. They're kind of old, right? And the planes are pretty old planes. I mean, these fighter planes are 20 years old, maybe. That's old. That's old for technology, right? That's old. So I wonder, I mean, it's better than nothing. Right? It's better than nothing, but I wonder just how good they would be in a real emergency. It's the most interesting time in history to be alive, to observe, to understand, to think, to problem solve, to plan, to share experiences to a certain extent, right? So it is a very interesting time to communicate about a lot of important things that are going on around about. To talk about the future, to talk about what people like and don't like, to talk about stress and pressure and how to handle it and how to manage it. It's a really important time to talk about those elements. To plan the future for kids as well. It's a very important time for looking at that.